So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first UEFA Medical webinar of 2025. Today, we're going to have Alan McCall and Johann Bilsborough. They will guide us through decision-making for medical tools in football. We skipped January, as you may have noticed. That was because we had the UEFA Medical Symposium in Lugano. I think from all the reactions we got back internally at UEFA, but mostly externally from you, it was a great success. We had over 500 participants over 3 days, quite a dense, packed program. If you couldn't make it, we still have all the infographics from all the talks available. They're circulating on LinkedIn. And if you just look for hashtag UEFA Medical Webinar, you will find them either through my own LinkedIn page or through the page of Katin Okkom-Krieger. If you can't find them, just let us know, and we'll make sure you get access to them. So, having said that, we're kicking off again with the medical webinars for the rest of the year. And as said today, we're going to look into how to evaluate which medical tools to use, how to decide when to use them, and how to invest in new tools. So, first up, I want to invite Alan McCall, consulting in R&D at Arsenal FC. Hi, Alan. Welcome.
Hi,
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Setup today for everybody is Alan will present briefly the topic to us, and then after that we'll have a discussion with both Alan and Johann, and you can all chip in by putting all your questions in the comments live on the right side in YouTube, and we'll chip them into the discussion later. So, Alan, floor is yours, and I'm looking forward to these 15 minutes, and I'm sure there's really practical pearls in there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eva. Thanks again to you and Kat and Zoran for inviting me and Johann on. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, all good.
Yep, perfect. So yeah, this is very brief, and because I think the real value will come from us just having a chat and conversation. But this might kind of give a bit of context and a bit of visual to stuff that we're going to be talking about, and that Johann will be talking about as well. So yeah, the topic you asked us to speak about is this fact or fiction. So we thought it'd be good to discuss a bit of a guide to choosing technologies in professional sports. And although Johann and myself our experiences in professional football and NFL, NBA, it also extends to all levels, and there's different kind of ways that you can approach this. It's not that you need to be in a Premier League team or an NBA team to be able to do this. It's really about critical thinking and having some easy tools that can help find what's good and what's not good. So I'll go through this, and the reason we need some sort of process to making our decisions is that we're, especially nowadays, in the last 5 to 10 years, that we're inundated with technologies. And I can't remember where this might be Trent Stellingworth image. I can't quite remember where it came from, but it's not mine, so I have borrowed it from someone on Twitter at some point. And this just gives an idea of the vast array of products and technologies that are available across a number of different areas. So training, prescription, load monitoring, recovery, performance, medical, etc. And there's all of these different options that we've got in the sports world. And I had a look. I just asked ChatGPT about the global sports tech market, and as you can see here, it's projected to reach around 117.9 billion. That's with a B by 2034. So there's a lot of money here, and what we tend to find is where there's money to be made, we'll also find a lot of snake oil salespeople. So they're all, and that's a big generalization. There's a lot of people and companies who want to do well and want to really look after protecting the health of players and increasing performance, but it's also comes with this danger of people just seeing a way to make money as well. And I don't know if there's any British people or people that like British comedy. This is Del Boy, one of the most famous London market traders on TV, and he always goes on about how he wants to be this time next year he's going to be a millionaire, and it's just a sitcom about him trying to make dodgy deals and sell things that don't work to people. So I like to use that analogy when we're because this is a lot of what we face in day to day as well. And it can be all sorts of things: cryo chambers, PRP, beetroot juice, 3D motion capture, stem cells. Some work well, some might not. But it's like, how can we understand where to invest resources? So not just money, but also our time and energy, because our time and energy is very important. And we want to try and be efficient with that. So our first line of defence, and this is just something that Johann and I came up with, I think it was 2019, maybe a bit before, and it's now been taken up by the Australian Institute of Sport. And it's our first line of defence. So whenever MD contacts us, we have a form that we send out to the companies, and this can be tech or it can be some sort of consultant, and it's like, well, okay, rather than us having to go and find all the information or them sending us about 100 papers and trying to bamboozle us, it's like, well, okay, this is the information we want to know. We want it in a structured format. We want to know how you've tested validity, reliability, is there independent peer review papers. So we're basically just trying to get them to, we want to see if they're serious or not, because what you tend to find is that 99 out of 100 won't even get back to you. So it's the one that does get back to you is the one that you know is serious and that you can go further with. Then when it comes to the time to actually make a decision, we developed this with Greg DuPont, or we evolved it. We didn't develop it. We took it from the medical literature. We wanted to look through a whole bunch of decision aids to understand how people make decisions, and across military, across emergency services, across medical. And this is the one that we found that we liked and we adapted for use in sport. Essentially what it was for medical practitioners to make a decision on what medication to give to a patient or which treatment to give to a patient, and it involves understanding what's the type of research or evidence base that supports it, from top level meta-analysis to the lowest level of evidence, expert opinion. But then also importantly, this quality rating. So you can have a level 1 randomized control trial or a meta-analysis, but it can be very poor. So therefore it doesn't actually, it's probably better just to be thrown in the bin. So we look at what evidence is available, what's the quality of the evidence. Evidence table tells us what something claims to do and what it probably does. And then this one's key, the considered judgment, where you have to understand what's the cost versus benefit, the risk versus benefit, the feasibility. Can it be used in practice? Will it be taken up by players or by coaches? And then we have this graded recommendation, an A to D, because things aren't so clear cut as yes or no, unfortunately, and everybody kind of wants that, but we put some accountability back on the people making the final decision for, or the persons making the final decision for a specific technology or consultant or strategy, from A to D. And obviously is the highest D, there's enough evidence not to use it in the kind of grey area in the B and C, which I'll show you in a second. And I know people use the quadrants, but we've been doing some work over the last since 2010, and we've found that this kind of grid system gives a better visualization and something easier that you can kind of decipher and understand what to use. And this is how it looks. So when you look at those A to D, so you get your high recommendation to very low. A is easy win, promising plays, long shots, and resource sinkholes. So you want to avoid, obviously, the red. You want to avoid these things that just that you're wasting those resources. I said about time, energy, money. And then what's evolved over time is we also give a bit of objectivity to that. So rather than it just being subjective, me saying that it falls into this category because I think so. You know, I saw 2 meta-analyses. I spoke to 4 experts. This was just a way to put a bit of objectivity to that, so that using the Harvey balls, and we look at this impact effort score for the matrix, looking at expected impact, so the scientific evidence, future potential, is there some potential that there's going to be better evidence in the near future, what's the ease and what's the financial cost of it, and it gives you this score of 1 to 5 for impact and effort, and that means it'll plot automatically. So it used to be that I would plot it subjectively myself, but now it's more objective, so it kind of takes out my bias a little bit as well. And I'm just going to leave it there, Eva, because that just gives a bit of a visualization, a bit of kind of intro, and I think now we're us having a discussion, we'll get more from it.
Perfect. Thank you for that brief introduction, Alan. And this is enough ammunition for me to throw some questions at you, but also at Johann Bilsborough. So I'll add him to the stage as well. Johann Bilsborough is the Director of Medical Performance and Innovation at the Dallas Mavericks, basketball professional in the US. So welcome, Johann. Glad you could join us.
Appreciate the invite.
So we're going to throw the both of you to the lions here, because some difficult questions to tackle, because this is an issue in sports. People walk the door in and out with new innovations, with the next best thing, and we need to make decisions. So before I start asking questions at you, once again, to the people online who are joining in, if you have any questions in relation to what we're discussing, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll add them. I'll add them to the discussion. Johann, let's start with that last image you showed. It kind of showed for me, if I looked at it, some key factors that you have to consider when making decisions or before adopting a tool. Can you guide us a little bit through these key factors? Is there a categorization in it? What is the first question you have to ask yourself?
The first thing we ask is this even a priority? Because this is the thing. I think people get caught up with something fancy or shiny comes through, and it's like, oh, I want that. And it's like, well, does that actually fit with our priorities and what we actually want to do as an organization? So it's a kind of, I guess, a bit of a needs analysis. Is it going to change something that's important for us? Because if it's not, and we also work with futurologists as well, looking at, remember Johann, a few years ago, we worked with a futurologist in New York, and we wanted to understand, like, so not only is something a priority, but is it in the future? Because we don't want to miss out as well. And that's the kind of first process that we kind of go through, is like, is this important for us? Is it going to change anything we do? And is there potential that it might be in a possible potential or probable future? And if so, then it's like, well, we can explore a bit further.
It's a practical application as well. Like, does this apply? Because there's a lot of, sexy things out there, and they glitter and they look fantastic, but are they practical and are they useful? Sometimes we chase those 1%ers and we haven't got all the other things right first. So we don't need that new shiny toy yet until we've got everything else going well. So just that practical application from our side of things is really important. And are players even going to be involved? It's also a real challenge, because we ask them to do a lot of things for us. And we don't want them to be like guinea pigs. They are still playing sport.
Yeah. It's like the GPS. When it first came out, we remember in Lille, and it was been in Australia for a bit longer, so Johann had been using it for a bit before that, but it was very new to Europe, and a couple of the big teams were using it. PSG were using it, and there was a lot of pressure on us in Lille, where Greg Dupont was, about, like, why are we not using GPS? And it's like, well, we don't quite know. We're not sure of its validity. We're not sure of its reliability. We don't really know yet what it's going to change. And the team still won a league and cup double. So it's not, it's not, but the pressure is real. But it just shows that you don't always have to jump onto stuff too early.
It's a great point. GPS, when we came to the Patriots in 2015, had a great strength coach and head coach. And they were the most successful team in NFL history without all these things. But we wanted to, when we talk about innovation, we talk about, like, Moses Guerrero, a great strength coach, just wanted to see how we can improve process. When you're watching 90 players on the field, which was new to me at the time, it's hard to understand what everyone was doing, but there was no GPS back then for that team. Implementing that helped us a lot. But it was really, really tough because most of the players said, you're going to use this information against us. That was the first hiccup. So getting through those things was a challenge. But the second part was we didn't know what it meant. We didn't know what the physiological demands of the sport and the different positions really meant yet. So it was hard to actually give anyone feedback at the time. So between the coach, the strength coach, and myself, we collected for a year before we disseminated that to other people because we wanted to understand what it all meant for the individual groups and for us as a team to mitigate risk and manage workloads.
Can I, because you just said, Johann, before this GPS came in, we didn't have all these tools, and it was still very, very successful in winning, because that's what sport is about in the end, right?
Correct.
Alan just said futurologist. Without doing anything wrong, it seems also a bit like fortune telling almost. How do you combine that all together? Because we're doing well now, and we want to have something that improves what we're doing into the future. That is quite a gap and a crystal ball type of thinking, or am I completely wrong?
Al, can I answer this one to start with? I had a great example when we first got there. Again, we've got the most successful coaching team in the history of the NFL, and we were overseeing and having a look at what was being done. And when you kind of did a graph where here's all our injuries, here's all our workloads, and when you plotted them over each other, the biggest thing would say was, I think you could do it differently, and I think you could do it better. And again, having a really innovative strength coach in Moses, we just made the suggestion, hey, if we measure this, we can manage it better, and maybe we don't have to have such a cluster of injuries here. So showing them maybe a different way was our way we got buy-in. Again, why were they going to listen to some idiot Australian that didn't know NFL, because I wouldn't have listened, and trying to change what they've done. And as you said, they're already winning. So having the opportunity to, again, having a very lateral thinking head coach and strength coach there helped us present a different way of doing it. We would say better, but you can't say that at the time because you don't know. Just a different strategy towards mitigating risk and having a better outcome. And we were given opportunity to do that very, very slowly, a little bit behind closed doors, because people didn't want to change things. I think that's the dirty C word in sport, is change.
Okay. But how much, I'm just also looking a little bit at the performance side here. How much do all these technological advancements improve our job, what we're doing? Maybe a complete different sidetrack. I saw this once, like a 100-meter sprint. Back in 1912, the world record was around 10.6. Right now, with all the technological advancements of over 100 years of research and all, we barely shaved 1 second off of it. So how much are all these advancements helping us to improve what we do? Is it really adding that 1%, or are there a few things where you say, if that crosses your path, that's a winner, you need to look at that? Or is that too broad of a question?
No. I think the question should also be, are they hindering us? Because with the more technologies and more data, it's creating problems. I think we're creating problems where they didn't exist. So it's like actually sometimes less and more simple. Like Aaron Coots published about the less you use, the better it can be. So I think we're getting caught up in this kind of technology and data that we want to do more and get more. And everything I see with the people and teams I work around the world with is it's the people that are delivering the things that's the difference. Everyone's got these technologies and everyone's got this type of data, and it's the people who are delivering that and creating behavioural change with players and with coaches that I see the main difference. So I think it can actually cause problems rather than, if like Johann said earlier, if it's something we know is going to have a practical application. And so it needs to be that kind of, I guess you need the rationale for why you want to do it. And is it going to change something? Because otherwise don't even bother doing it and test it out first, like Johann said there as well. And it's use it for a while and see before you start making decisions, because you can make the wrong decision and then you make things worse.
Can you share some examples of where you made the wrong decision, where you thought, this is it, this is promising, I'm going to do this, and then later you realized you made a mistake? Are you daring to share some examples or stories?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd probably have to think about them because what are you going to say, Johann?
I've got some good examples where people in the organization thought they were great ideas, but may have not worked, and they were expensive things that probably didn't go well. Example were blood testing was a big thing in the early 2000s, and every team was promoting in the media, this is in the AFL, that, you know, you should do this blood test and this biomarker for this and for this. And so I was told that we needed to do them and we had to do them. I think Stu Phillips, John Hawley said this was going to be a waste of time and a needle in a haystack, which it was. So for a 12-month period, we had 54 athletes take every known cytokine known to mankind, and we looked at everything, all the subjective monitoring, as well as all this invasive blood testing, which it really was invasive. They also did some salivary testing because we were told we had to do it. And ultimately, when we looked at all the relationships between everything, you know, they said, you know, what was going to be really helpful, managing RPEs and training load, which is free, by the way, and makes you have a really good relationship with your player, was able to offset all of the inflammatory markers anyway. So for hundreds of thousands of dollars and time and effort, it was something that I look at and think it was a complete waste of time. And we'd like to publish that. We just haven't, because hopefully it would save other teams hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is a really expensive waste of time that I thought was just, I don't know why we did it. But again, there was pressure from other people because they're hearing, when another team's successful out there, everyone says, oh, what are they doing? And it's probably because they had talent more than anything else. And some of the things you discuss, some of the things that we do, Aaron once said to us, Alan, like, we started here, we measured everything. We measured everything known to mankind with GPS, and then we've kind of come full circle, and now we just measure very few things now. And so now that we understand reliability and validity, we only measure a few metrics that are really important to that sport, and that's what's changed.
I think, like you say, Eva, I think it's only a mistake if you keep doing it, or you do it again. You know, I think that's it. I don't think I've got nothing wrong. I've got nothing against testing things and maybe being open to being wrong. If I might think that something won't work, but if there's enough sufficient kind of rationale to test it, then we can test things or we can use them, and we see they don't work, it's okay, let's stop. But it's when people don't stop or don't even test, that's the biggest thing. I think most people don't have any framework for innovation. It's just take stuff, implement it, and then forget about it. And then you find, and I remember when I came into Celtic the first time, me and Greg were looking through some stuff in the office to throw out a bunch of stuff, and we found a Metamax, which is like £40,000, working absolutely fine, ready for the bin. And it's like, so I think as long as you're open to, or have this kind of process in place where, you know, you go in open knowing that something might not work, but you need a protocol in place to understand if it does what you think it's going to do, and if it doesn't, do you get rid of it, or do you have to change something? If it does, can you do it better, and just keep going from there? So I think that's I don't know if we've made so many mistakes that we've kept doing things that don't work, but we've done plenty of stuff that doesn't work and then changed it.
Yeah, I see that. Oh, sorry. Another good example was we had a gentleman that came to our team, and we did motionless motion capture kind of movement screens. Again, 55 players plus the second team every week. You know, after a year worth of doing this, and this guy saying, we can predict what they're doing, which we couldn't. It was all gutted and ripped out, and it showed no relationship to injury once we did some good statistical analysis on it. It was terrible. But again, I still see it. This goes back to 2007, 2008, Al, and I'm still seeing in 2024, 25, these same things coming through that I know sometimes I'm very skeptical, because we've seen them with some really good people and we've done them before and they haven't worked well. But I'm with you. I don't mind. We'll actually contact the company who wants to sell us something and ask for a demo model to come in and do our own test and retest reliability or validation study and either say to them, it's promising, can we keep it? Or no, send it back, you need to do more work in it. Because some of them are really promising, but they don't work. And I hope that they can develop them in time.
Got it. There's a question popping up in the chat, just kind of based on this comment, Johann. And if you do these tests, you play with your tech and you use it on your players. Doesn't that also pose some potential medical dilemmas, ethical dilemmas?
Depending on the device, yes, absolutely. Sometimes we'll do it on staff as well. Like there are layers of different things that you can and can't do. So
you feel that is ethical?
Never, but like I had to do some reliability for a DEXA, and allegedly I might have exceeded my dosage while I had to do it because it was only me to do it. It was my own research. So sometimes you will do different things to get around those things because we don't want to use players as guinea pigs. You're 100% right. But we'll go through a lot of thought process and ask a lot of questions prior to ever implementing it if it gets to a player, then we've probably been really diligent. And again, sometimes they won't work as well as we thought they would, or they won't be as practical. So it's a good point. But by the time it got to a player, we've really gone through some testing.
Yeah, that's also the grid that I showed you as well, that decision aid that we used from medical treatment, Eva, is part of that considered judgment. Part of that is can it be done and should it be done?
Correct.
And at what level should it be done? You know, what's the and it's all risk management. It's like what's the risk here and what's the benefit, and does it outweigh? And it's always a shared decision. You're not doing stuff. You're not getting something and putting something on. Well, you shouldn't. Maybe some teams do, but for us, it's very much understanding: has something got a rationale? Is it safe? What's the risks? Is it an acceptable risk? Does everyone know what the risks are? Is everyone happy with it? This is how we're going to test it, and then you go from there.
Got it. Let's move to a different topic that's also really important here to discuss: the role of data in adoption of new measures. You already gave some examples that are pretty, high-level medical data or personal data. And there was also a question in the chat about this. There's this thirst for data with AI and machine learning and such things that are up and coming. What does that do to our security? Do we, instead of getting new tools in, should we also think about security of data with these tools? Do we have that in place? It's a double-edged sword in the end, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, for us, we've got in football, especially since GDPR rules and stuff come in. I remember when I started out, like people sharing data or data going around with being very loose, but it's very, very. Like we've got whole departments working on GDPR legal, so like I work very closely with the legal department and the data protection to make sure that anything we're doing is within whatever regulations it needs to be. So that's clubs are very strict on that now, especially in the UK.
Yeah, very similar here in the NFL and NBA. They've got a lot of really strict guidelines that we have to adhere to. There's the whole department of the IT department keep us protected. We don't want things leaked out. And we're really, really stringent with anything that we deal with. Any vendors externally that come, like some of the GPS tracking and things like that, they also have to go through such a huge legal kind of component prior to them being a vendor of us as well.
Yeah, we won't do anything without sign off that it's okay to do it from the relevant people in the clubs or if I'm working across governing body or federation. So yeah, as long as they tick it off and we went through that process, then we can go from there.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, and then data, bit of research. So you just mentioned you're going to do some tests to see if it really does what it seems to do. So that's kind of a little bit on the edge of doing some research, probably internally. What level of validation are you looking for to make that decision then? Is it really a gut feeling that you're looking for? Because a full-fledged study on validation and all that you're not going to do, because you're basically doing the job that the company should have done already. It's really just looking internally.
That's a great question. In the old days, I think 2008 when we got our first 12 GPS units, and we're at the game and they crashed on day one. I remember going back to the company, because we're not going to mention brands, but we went back to the company and we said, hey, like, this doesn't work. Like, we're 3 weeks in, it's crashed every day. And they said, well, you drive a car out, these things can happen. And I said, not if I spent $58,000 on the car. I expect it to work on day one. But we end up being the R&D company for a lot of these places. And we deal with a lot of startups who approach us, and the negotiation, if we think the technology is promising, is that 1, we won't pay for full price. 2, you may have to give it to us to help you with that process. And I know Dave Martin worked when he was at the Philly 76ers. He kind of worked with a few companies and said, okay, we think your device or your technology is really promising. Can we actually be exclusive and work with you guys to develop this product within, which I thought was actually quite a cool idea. And they got some really good outcomes for that. He's also really lateral thinking kind of guy, but that worked well. So we'll do something similar. And sometimes we will do kind of a full-blown kind of validation study. Don't ever ask to have a radar gun sent from Australia to the US. Ask for a radar device, because it will be sent back. But we did some reliability and validity between the system that is around the NBA courts and some of the practical things that we were using at our level. So it can go really full blown if we think it's really important to make good decisions going forward.
Same for us. One of my PhD studies from 2013, so we've done it in 2011, is an isometric hamstring or isometric lower posterior limb test, and that was done internally with players to check the validity and the sensitivity, the reliability and the sensitivity of this test, because it's hamstrings were, and still are, I guess, one of the more important injuries for us. And at the time, it was we needed something to measure some sort of marker of force after a game. So we saw, okay, this force plate, we can maybe evolve this test, but let's check it's reliable and sensitive. So same as Johann, like when people buy into the process internally and they know what you're doing and why you're doing it, then they'll help you. They'll help you to test it, and you can get sufficient numbers to have a good idea. At least in your cohort, it might be difficult to generalize out with your population, but you can get enough confidence that it's like, okay, this is pretty valid. This is reliable. The sensitivity is decent, so we're happy to use it, or we're not.
Correct. If you know the error,
but I hear all that, But sorry, Johann, I hear all this, but we're talking now about the privileged position of having skills and resources, clubs coming or companies coming to us or to you to ask you to help validate. 90% of all the football clubs in Europe probably don't have those resources and probably don't have that luxury, but still need to make decisions, right? They still are exposed to a new technology here or a new technology there. And should I buy it or should I not buy it? Is this a good thing or not? What is a concrete advice you have for those clubs?
Yeah, it comes down to, like, it's, Maurizio Fanchini, when he was checking the validity of the RPE and different things, he was in League 4 of the Serie, whatever, in Italy. So it comes down to the motivation of the people to want to be better and to learn. So you need to educate yourself. I think that's the thing. You want people in your organization who either they're going to teach themselves how to do it, or they're going to be able to create a network of, if you want it hard, if you want it enough, you'll find a way to find out. So I don't think it's easy, maybe easier for us at this level, and also because we've went through the experience, but we also didn't just start at the top level. We've taught ourselves as we've went and leaned on, if that's the right English, leaned on people who are well better than us as well. So I think it comes down to the motivation of the staff to want to be better and to want to understand this stuff, or whether you're just lazy or not. We've
done the same thing. We have actually gone through a process with staff at NFL and NBA and gone through and said, hey, we want to empower you guys to make better decisions. And how we do that is underpin the skills that they already have with some good data science, so they are really empowered to know whether this is noise or this is okay, or we can make a better decision. They really want to learn. So I've got two really good young strength coaches here, Jordan and Albert, who are fantastic, who haven't done a lot of stats work at all. So we nerd them up and we spend a lot of time because they are so passionate and interested to make a difference. And they've taken it on board and they're now empowered to make much better decisions. Look, I'm 52, but I've gone back to last year to do a master's in data science and applied statistics. Why? Because everyone's programming in R and I want to be better at doing it. And so if you are really motivated to do it, there are so many areas that you can improve if you want to. I talked to Moses Cabrera and people would say, oh, he's old school as the strength coach of the Patriots. But listening to him now present and talk about standard deviations and error measurement and things like that is great, because people in this industry want to get better. They really do. And if you've got young, enthusiastic people who are already good in one area, they want to complement the skill set they're doing. So it doesn't cost a lot. There's YouTube. There's so many resources out there to upskill if you're interested. And yes, you've got to make some sacrifice and there's some learning curves. But I think it's really important if you want to be better at your job.
Yeah, it comes back to that point we made about people as well, Eva. I think
Correct.
That's, if there's an advice for what clubs should do, it's try and engage smart, enthusiastic people who are good critical thinkers. I think that's a big thing, is it's kind of critical thinking.
Yeah.
Because then
It's just,
you'll find a way to at least get some. If you've got somebody who's smart enough to ask questions, then you've got a chance.
Yeah. It is like I said in introductions when we were chatting before this, like a tool is not going to make you better, right? A fool with a tool is still a fool. So if you can upskill your people, the tools will also become more efficient, right? So there's also a comment now in the chat of someone saying that, you know, not all the clubs have the money, but they can have the incentives, and that might be something to support clubs with, of course. Yeah.
Also, that's the thing. You've got to put it back into the language of the people that you're dealing with. So, like a club, it's like, well, actually, you're trying to save them money here. So you also, you want to make the right decision for the players. But you're also trying to protect the club's resources. So people always see these things as a cost, but actually, maybe they should see it as a cost saving or a cost efficiency exercise, because actually, it can save money. So you can get a return on investment.
The title here is Roller Data in Adoption. It's helped us take out the bias of, I really like this player, but his health rating is terrible. Like, I know you like him, but it's actually helped us make more objective decisions, and a balance of the data and clinician and meeting in the middle a lot of the times has been really, really helpful for us to make good decisions. So it's not always data driven on every single time. I got two good physical therapists, Brian and Chris Dole, and their brothers, but they have not missed a diagnosis as a physical therapist in 10 years for us yet. Not once. That's a great strike rate. That's better than any technology that I have. It's having a really good, experienced clinician and helping underpin some of the decisions they make as we go through rehab with some of the data. Definitely has been a good thing for us.
Yeah. Moving to another topic, and you see it now on the bottom of the screen, evaluating cost versus benefit. And I may want to introduce this with a question that was also in the chat, and that's more on the negative effects, because most of these tools are trying to make our work more efficient, more fast, get players back more quickly after an injury. Is that always the best approach to do? Are there any negative effects that you might have observed by implementing a new tool or a new tech that may have worked the wrong way around?
Yeah, I think we notice more things that just don't work. I think if you're vetting them properly, you should avoid something negative creeping in. I would say it's more things that come in that don't work, and it's hard sometimes if it's like a if it's like a recruitment tool or a recruitment prediction, you're trying to recruit players and somebody's proposing an algorithm, that it's difficult sometimes to know if something's had a negative effect, but it could be that you make the wrong decision, you miss the next superstar player.
Yeah, but the question here in the chat was more about, so we have an injured player, and this was specifically about knee injuries, I assume, from how it was asked. And this tool says, okay, with this tool you can accelerate recovery, and you go quicker than the ruling medical guidelines. And is that tool causing harm, or is that something you could trust based on what you know about what is presented to you?
I think it's case by case, but we always say, again, dealing with a lot of clinicians, we treat the symptoms, not the scan. Now, MRIs in football and in basketball, for us, we can get them done all day, every day if required, but they are expensive. However, I would still back my clinician when they're really, really good over an expensive scan. So symptoms, working with a player and having really good trust, I think a lot of those things can override some of the technology. The technology is there to help and complement some of the decisions made by the clinicians. Some of the best people that I've worked with, like Joel Hocking, be a great one, Alan, to lean on. Everyone was using Dartfish and this and that. No, he could coach. He could watch you live, and he could coach and fix your technique as you ran. Us nerds had to go back and get Dartfish and analyze it, and then come back with a graph the next afternoon. No, he's so helpful because he's a great coach and he can do it live, and that beat all the technology that we may have thought was going to complement that process. But his skill set was second to none from a coaching perspective, and he would be more correct than any of our analysis that we would give. So cost benefit wise, I think having really good experienced clinicians and coaches can sometimes be really, really helpful in this situation.
It boils back down again to people. So it's more beneficial to invest in your staff and the quality of your staff than invest in new tools and technology. Is that kind of a brief summary from your answer there, Johann?
I would say that would be from the last 15, 18 years experience-wise, yes. But we've been really lucky to have really good people. I think we discussed prior to getting on, like, what are times where some of this expensive technology has actually assisted us? We've gone the opposite way, where sometimes it hasn't. But I was a very big skeptic.
Can you give some examples of that?
Yeah, so it kind of tweaked me to remember. We had that UTC tendon scanning back in 2008 in early days, which I didn't think it gave us anything better than a good clinician diagnosing tendinopathy. And so I was always a big skeptic. Recently, as I came to this new team, they were still using it. So it's 2025. So it's a long process between when I last saw it. And so I was already negative. And there was a young guy, Jared Amfleck, who's actually in London, who did some really good work. And I gave every vendor that, when I inherited this team, every vendor about 3 hours time to explain what they do, how they do it. But the technology had changed and the resolution had changed. Also, the context of how he presented the information was so much better than what it was done in 2008, 2010. And so for that, we have continued to use it. Now, I went in there thinking, no, we're going to take this out. It doesn't work because of my previous bias from the experience I had. But I'd use that again, and we've continued to use it. And he's been excellent with the way he's presented this. And it's really complemented and assisted the clinicians on prescription and process for us as an athlete. So for me, it's been a really good example of something that I may not have thought it would be useful, but it's been worth the expense.
Makes me think of
and
another
then also at
example.
the expense of quality personnel using it. Again.
Correct.
Yeah. Alan, you had an example?
Yeah, no, it just makes me think of something a bit in the reverse of Johann's, and it's more a recovery modality, so the cold water immersion. I always remember it was the big thing in like late noughties into 2010s, and So the literature is saying, oh, you have to go in 10 minutes up to your neck, 10 degrees, 12 degrees, whatever it is. And I remember you'd be fighting with players after a game, go in up to the neck, 10 minutes, and you end up like arguing and negotiating, and they go up to their shins for 3 minutes. And now looking at like how it's evolved, the literature and our knowledge and our experience over the time, it's like, well, maybe the cold water's not as effective as we thought on that kind of global perspective or that generalization. And I wonder if the stress that it caused me and the player by arguing to do it, did that make it worse? Did that make recovery worse? Potentially, I don't know. But it's that's what I was saying before, is I don't think we make mistakes. It's only if we keep doing them and don't learn from them. But that's in the other direction of Johann's. It's something we thought worked, and they were like, okay, there's still use for it, but it might not work for this player. It might work better for this one. It might in this context, etc.
We've saved a lot of money not using cold lasers and STIM and all the modalities known to mankind that come across your desk, and we've replaced those with really good qualified clinicians, and they're worth their weight in gold, because we live and die by good diagnosis. Because if you get that wrong to start with, you can do everything you want, but you'll make a lot of mistakes along the way. And again, it comes to really good people. And I use the Dolan brothers as a good example. They've been invaluable to the success of outcome for a client's or a patient's health and a player's health. No different. Stu Phillips said something a little while ago, like it's okay science evolves and changes. There used to be the anabolic window that we had to get protein in. Maybe the window is like a big glass door now, and it's really open. It's not this narrow little window that we have to follow. And we're lucky we've got a great dietitian here, Charles Ashford, who won't look at all the supplements that you need to take, just base it on real food. So that kind of ethos and philosophy, because when you're in an NBA schedule, you've got sleep compromised and you're at hotels all the time and you've got diet. What we can't control is there's 82 games. We knew the schedule at the start of the year, and that's something that's already in place. We know we're traveling a lot, but his ability to work with players and understand what they're doing and get the individual needs for them sorted has been exceptional. A reduction in supplementation, good common sense. We're not doing these ridiculous blood tests that used to be done. He's just narrowed everything down. Good common sense and great communication to work with players one-on-one. And guess what? It takes a lot of time, and he's willing to invest that time because that's why he's good at his job.
Well, this webinar is going from evaluating medical tools and how to train your staff to use those medical tools a little bit. But that's a really important take-home message. And this may get me to a little sidetrack to a question that was just posed. In the experience of Derek McCormack, who asked the question, a lot of these tools are kind of the emperor's new clothes. I like the analogy. But the players also expect a lot, right? So they see something on Instagram, they hear something from other players, a famous player has this or that, so they want it too. It's kind of a de-implementation you need to do in a lot of tools of which that they don't work, and probably also higher up in the organization. How do you deal with that?
Al, can I start on that one?
Yeah.
I'm really lucky. I've had a fantastic coach GM in the last place I was at, who was, they're going to say he was old school. I just say he was really experienced and seen a lot. And even now I've got a fantastic GM who put innovation as part of my job title because he wants things to evolve and change. Some people are really stuck in their ways of just doing things because others are doing them or because that's how it's always been done. I think from that side of things, it's been really important to work with good people that let you have that critical thinking component. For us, it's been really helpful.
Yeah, I think I don't know if that's Derek McCormack that I used to work with at Celtic. If it is, hi Derek, been a long time. I hope it's him. Same with Johann. It's like it comes back to those. Like, I think there's no harm in people coming across these things and looking at them and being curious and wanting to see, is there something we can do that's going to make us better? The good thing is, and that Johann's got, is that the people, the key decision makers, are actually coming to us and asking us. So that's the thing. If you can build a relationship with the people so that they know that they can come to you and just run these things by you, you can start to say, yeah, maybe this one works, maybe this one doesn't. But that's the key thing, is the relationship with those people, that they want to come to you.
And we educate along the
I believe
way.
it is the Derek McCormack, because he says you need to have a shave, Alan.
Yeah, Mavericks don't change that. That was 20 years ago as well.
We've got an assistant GM who is fantastic with us, and we send him all the results of the things we're doing because I want to educate them along the way. I can't pick players like they can, and I don't want to. I stay in my scope of practice. It's nice to have different disciplines looking at a similar problem. And even from their side, there's often disconnect from like what we call front office and what we are doing day to day on the ground. So if we can continue just to not have that by educating them on why we're doing what we're doing, they've got to fund it as well. So they want some rationale on what we're doing and why we're doing it. Good conversation with those people has really helped us make better decisions and help them understand what we're doing. And then they don't, I'm not going to say interfere, but then they don't get involved with, they'll just send you now the different technologies and things and say, hey, I'll leave it with you to evaluate. And they trust you, which is helpful. Not always the case, but we are very lucky here.
So I don't know if there's any other questions from the audience, but if I kind of sum up the entire almost hour so far, I would say the best way to evaluate whether medical tools are good is to think critical. Always question whether the tool is actually doing something you need it to do, and whether it's plausible that it will do that. Educate yourself and educate your team, and also communicate with your team and your players about certain decisions that are being made. Is that a nice sum up, or am I missing any critical points here?
No, that's great. Maybe just add like something about building network so that you can kind of lean on people. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot more smarter people around that know more than us. So we lean a lot on each other. I lean a lot on Johann, and we lean a lot on a lot of other people. And just over time, you get that kind of network that you know, okay, it's neuromuscular function stuff. Okay, I'm going to go to Nicola Maffoletti, or it's something else. I'm going to go to this person, and at least you get a bit of a kind of trusted snapshot. It's definitely helpful.
And in my experience, colleagues are really keen on helping you out and answering questions, right? We're not competing with each other. We're all in the same game of making sure our players stay healthy and safe and can perform at their best.
Exactly.
So I would say reach out. Yeah.
Alan's
Johann?
true. Alan's correct. Like I must reach out to Dave Howarth, Jared Anflick, Alan constantly, and I annoy him, Aaron Coots. Like we've got such a good network of smart. They're much smarter than I'll ever be, and that's fine. That helps me. You should hire people that are smarter than you so you can learn. There's the different disciplines that we have to interact with help us improve the process of our job. So really lucky to work with those people, and they challenge you also, because I like Aaron says. Aaron often says to me, "That's stupid. Why would you do that?" And he reminds me. He says, "No stupid questions, just stupid people" to me. So, which is good because it makes you think, and it really makes you refine your process on what you're doing. But it's got to be practical. Above all the money and things that you can spend, we reduce the amount of money we're spending in this department because we're using it on investing in people and investing in things that really do work, that actually help us make decisions on a day-to-day basis. Not the things that there's things that you need, and there's some of the things that you would like. And we've kind of taken the things out that we like and get the big rock things sorted and done really well.
It kind of links to a comment Andy Meisman just said in the chat, that in his limited experience, the rise in reliance on tech tools is in danger of removing critical thinking from practice, which is kind of what you just said a little bit, Johann. So I think the audience agree with that. There's a good question still on this implementation topic. How do you handle the communication with key club stakeholders who expect you to implement data analysis and technology? because you simply have to, right? But there's not robust scientific backing. Is there any advice you can give to Francesco?
Al?
It comes back to my point that I made before. Ciao, Francesco. I hope you're well. It just comes back to that, like the relationship that you've got with the people in your club, that they trust you to come to you and what you're given. And it's also like, it's not that you're always taking stuff away. It's like how to integrate stuff better, or it's not that you want to say no to everything. You just want to make life easier for everyone and make sure you're implementing something that actually works. So yeah, again, just back to that relationship and time. It just takes time to build the trust, and they need to see some examples, and they need to see that consistently over time.
And I must say, our GM at this place, and I've only been here since July, but he uses the thing, we're not taking the money away from you. Don't panic for your budget for your department, but we'll redeploy funds. So you won't lose it if you don't use it. We'll actually just redeploy it or roll over for the next year, or we'll spend it to educate the staff instead of getting something that's shiny and new. We'll actually rather invest in getting a good speaker to come over from another country or something like that. That's going to help us. So, but from a data side of things, again, like Alan said, once you gain trust of your management team, you have to really present why this data is good or bad and how we're using it. And once you got a good relationship with them, it works really well.
Maybe an example, Eva, is like if somebody wants to come, and I won't mention the technologies because I usually get into trouble for mentioning certain technologies, but somebody comes with this new technology that's going to revamp everything that we do. It's a company, and they promise all these things, and okay, you look at it and they won't share their data, they won't share their validity, so they're basically, it's like, okay, we've got to take your word that this thing works. So what I'll do is then I'll say, okay, what is this topic area? Who's the best person or people in the world who don't have conflicts of interest? I'll then go to, and this is maybe where it's a bit more, we've got a bit more advantage because we've been doing it for longer, or we're at kind of high level clubs. But you go to those people and say, look, I want to do a project around this area, and I create a project with them, and I go back to the club and I say, okay, let's not buy a company that's a black box. We don't know, they're not giving us the information, but I've got the best expert in the world. We're going to do this project. We'll bring them in, and we'll do it in a way that we control everything. We control the data. We control the analysis. We'll see what works, what doesn't. So that's that kind of, you're not saying no to everything, but you're offering solutions. I think if you can offer a solution, then that's where they start to trust you.
I agree.
Trust. That's your take-home message, Alan. Good.
Yeah.
You have a last sentence, Johann, that could be a practical take-home message?
Yeah, from all the information and technology and everything, I think developing a good relationship with your player and your staff, I learned much more than maybe some of the technological things that we have access to. And like I said, we've reduced the amount of things that we've used just to get better in those areas and develop relationships. Because a player, we can't measure everything, by the way. We've got limitations on technology, but you can sit down with a player and talk to them who can hide a lot of things from you unless you are going to be sincere and honest with them. And so that's developed much better information and data than many of the tools that we've had access to. Would you say that's fair, Alan?
Yeah. It's like the study we done with the players, the qualitative interviews with the players.
Good point.
That's also a good point. Might be a future topic for another medical webinar to talk about more qualitative input from players and how to do that and how to deal with that and what you can get out of it. So for today, Johann, Alan, thank you very, very much for the insightful discussion. Less tech, more persons. That's kind of my take home. Invest in the right things, and that's not always the new shiny tool that comes through the door. So thank you very much. Before we head off, I want to tell the people that are still online, the next medical webinar is on March 31st, same time, 6 p.m. Central European time, and it's going to be about anti-doping, but mostly about protecting your players from accidental doping. And we are being joined from people from the medical and anti-doping unit to guide us through the minefield of this topic. So see you then. And for now, have a nice evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks
Thanks very
everyone.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.